ovaries are the primary source of that, especially in non-pregnant females. Okay? The placenta, when we're pregnant, is going to be the primary source. So that's why they say, like in non-pregnant females, it'll be your ovaries, okay, for your estrogen and your progesterone. That's all I want you to know about that is what's on this slide. I'll put this picture on your next slide to go with box 17-2 for the hysterectomy. Okay, the next slide. This is like an overview of what it would look like if we were looking in the abdomen during a total abdominal hysterectomy. Okay, so we have a single tube tenaculum basically grabbing the fundus of the uterus here, and I want you to just kind of look at everything. They're labeling it for you. Your bladder is right here at the top, or at the bottom of the photo. Okay. Your rectum is sitting behind that uterus. The uterus is right here in the middle. And then you have your round ligament, okay, which is this little light color coming from the uterus to the pelvic wall. You have your fallopian tube, your fimbriae, you have your ovaries. Your broad ligament is just that one sheet of tissue, okay, that's connecting your uterus to your pelvic wall, okay? So that's just to kind of show you what it looks like when you're looking at an abdomen, okay? Mammary gland is, we're skipping 393, 394, and keep going all the way to page, I say to stop, 402. No. All right, mammary glands, your boobies, okay? To get the best chance of breastfeeding, you need these things to produce, okay? So, we're not going to have to label anything of the boobies, okay? Like, you're not going through nipple, areola, all this stuff. Know that those are mammary glands, okay? That's it. Yeah. Jesse just took a video off. So mammary glands, okay. That's where you're getting it.
What she said?
Oh, she asked if you were asking a bunch of questions.
No, not today. I'm just listening.
All right, so your mammary glands be able to identify the mammary gland, okay? Not everything else. That structure highlighted in blue is going to be the mammary gland, okay? That's where your milk comes from, okay, when you're feeding your baby, and they are situated within the fatty tissue, okay, which is like your subcutaneous tissue of the breast. It says the majority of the breast lies anterior to your pec major, and it is attached to your muscle. Mammary glands consist of lobes, and each lobe has a duct, which will lead to your nipple, and that's how the baby can drink from it. Breast development stimulated by the hormones that are released by the ovaries during puberty. Just a little summary of how you actually develop your breast, okay? We don't need to highlight anything else about your boobies, okay? And that is it for the highlighting of the chapter 17 in your A&P book. Got that? Simple enough for now? It probably will be. Right, it is. It's the easiest thing because we're females. We have all this stuff, okay? So not a whole lot to highlight in there whatsoever. PowerPoint, like I said, 11 slides. Make sure you look at the handout that, once again, make sure you can answer all those questions, okay? And that way you can study from this. It's really short and sweet, all right? Sometimes there's like a question. Sometimes it's just a statement that I'm telling you. So make sure you study that as well, okay? out your A&P book real quick. Which is chapter 8, page 269.
You talking about your midterm book?
Yes. That's what I said. I'm sorry.
You said A&P. Wait.
Sorry. I'm sorry. All right, I like the anatomy lesson for the female A&P section in this midterm book. I think it's thorough, and I think it's something really good to study from. So I always used to tell them, save your book too when we get to GYN, just so you can go back and reference and read up on your A&P stuff, okay? So the top picture on 269 is what I was showing you from like a lateral view of the internal anatomy, okay? So you can see your uterus, and then your rectum's behind it, and your bladder is in front of it. It's very important to understand the order of those things, okay? That your rectum's behind, the bladder's in front, and your uterus is in the middle. That's why you have 3 holes, urethra, vaginal, and anus, in that order, okay? So I want you to look at the side view, look at a top view, make sure you really grasp where they are in reference to each other, okay? The bottom picture is a really good one. It shows you your fundus of your uterus. You know the middle section is your body, and then you have your cervix, okay? It shows you your layers, of course, your perimetrium, your myometrium, and your endometrium. They show you the Bartholin glands that are down at the bottom. If anybody doesn't understand the med term, what you need to know list, let me know, okay? But yeah, look at definitely your terms, like your definitions. Your booby picture on 271, just basically, again, looking at those mammary glands, okay? That's what we're going to just kind of focus on. So I would definitely do the exercises, like when you're labeling the pictures, to make sure that you got them correctly, okay? Endometriosis on 276. They show you a picture of the implantation of the endometrial lining, okay? Those little black spots. That's the endometrial tissue that is implanting somewhere other than the inside of the uterus, okay? So that's why we say you can have it anywhere inside your abdominal cavity, okay? They go all over the place. That's when we're going to take that CO2 laser and try to go in laparoscopically and burn every endometrial spot we can, if possible. Okay, so that way we can kind of kill it and stop it from spreading, right? Y'all know what toxic shock syndrome is? Don't leave your tampons in for like 8 hours. All right, go to 282. I wanted to kind of have you look at what's called the fistulas, and this is going to be in any part of your body, okay? So they have different types of fistulas that they're going to describe here, but I want you to understand what a fistula is, period, okay? So it's an opening between 2 things that like shouldn't be connected, okay? So when you're looking at this photo, it says types of vaginal fistulas, and they're showing them to you, 3 of them, and it's all going to be midterm, however it's connected, the rectum to the vagina, okay? But you see how there's like those little, it's like a little ant tunnel, okay, that's being connected from the colon to the vagina, from the rectum to the vagina. You see how they have those little openings that they're pointing to? That's what a fistula is. So usually we'll have anal fistula. It's a fistula from maybe the anus into some other part of the body that's not supposed to be connected, okay? So anytime you hear anybody talk about a fistula, you're not supposed to have one. It's like a little ant tunnel. It's like a little tube. So your little probe director and your groove thing, your groove director and your probe, that's what fits in it, right there. We can probe through it and figure out where the tunnel's going. So we can put maybe a drain in it and start letting it heal from the inside out so we can shut down the tunnel, okay? So that's what fistulas are. When you're looking at page 283, they kind of show you, it's like an example for exercise 13. See how those little arrows are all over the uterus? So your uterus should be what that top photo looks like, what the top part of that uterus looks like, okay? It should be kind of that curved look. Then they're showing it like it's fallen out through the vagina. That happens, and we talk about that in GYN, okay? So it's called like vaginal prolapse. The pelvic floor muscles get really weak, and so they're not holding up your stuff anymore. So you can have a rectal prolapse, to where your anus is gonna, like your rectum's gonna protrude through your anus, your uterus can protrude through your vagina, your bladder can kind of slip out. Yeah, a sling, right? You have slings to lift all that up. So anything can protrude through your vaginal opening, okay? Because when you look at the vagina, you have rectum down here, like colon down there, rectum, and then you have your bladder at the top, okay? So any of that can like kind of protrude and want to slip out. It's just like basically taking a sock and turning it inside out. That's what happens. So it's not like your bladder sack's going to be hanging out, but it's just the peritoneal layer is going to start outpouching. So that's what happens, and it's showing you kind of with the uterus. Your uterus will kind of want to slip through the vagina and want to like protrude a little bit. So we have to go back in and like push it up. All your ligaments have been relaxed. You know, nothing's holding it tight up anymore. Like your broad ligament, your suspensory ligament, none of that's tight. So that's why things want to just fall. And then once they sit on that pelvic floor for a certain period of time, it can come through the opening, okay? A lot of elderly people go through that because they just don't have people taking care of them too much. So sometimes they come in and we have to do a hysterectomy because their uterus is falling out. That's what we call it, you know. Or people who've had a bunch of kids, but yet they don't need a hysterectomy. We just put a little sling, okay, and maybe hold their bladder up, or if there's, you know, whatever it is, we can kind of push back in and tighten that pelvic floor, okay. The fibroid picture is on 283, that's number 2 on the right. They talk about fibroids. See how I told you they can kind of go on the inside, and that middle layer can protrude to the outside. We can take them off and sew it all back up. So you can still have all your fibroids removed and still go and have a baby. You know, we just kind of shell them out. When we talk about a myomectomy in the summer, you're basically going to cut the opening like serosal layer, get to the myometrium layer, and like kind of like pop it. It's like a little pea. You know, we want to like pop it out and then cut it, dissect it, and take it out. And then we can go ahead and close that space back up, suture it up. Let's see. All right, so on 286, there with the dotted lines on that exercise, they're wanting you to identify what they're removing, okay? So you see how they have just the uterus gone, and then the next picture is you keep the uterus, but they took the tubes and ovaries bilateral, and then the last picture they took everything. Okay, so that's just an example of what they can take out and what they can keep in, okay? Mammoplasties, you're gonna learn that with Lindsay when we do plastics, okay? Okay, so you know how the last test we had an AP resection for abdominal perineal resection? Okay, that's why it was perineal, not peritoneal. Whenever you look at page 291, right, yeah, they exercise at the bottom, part C, anterior and posterior, you're gonna see it's colpophory or whatever, like it's that top term, anterior, posterior, colpophory, A and P repair, okay, that's what this is coming in now, we're not in digestive anymore. This is called an anterior and posterior repair. So now we have to fix what's protruding, like your bladder's kind of falling out, your rectum's kind of falling out. So when we look in the vagina, we're tightening the pelvic floor that's covering the rectum to keep that in, and we're tightening the vaginal floor at the top to keep that bladder up, okay? So that's why it's called anterior posterior repair, okay? And we just tighten it up, or sometimes we have to put a piece of mesh as well, but you want to tighten it up real good, okay? So that's where that comes into play. Your DNCs, you'll learn that in GYN with Lindsay, or she teaches that part of it. Ablations, we'll talk about that too, but that is when we're going to burn basically the endometrial lining of your uterus, okay? So someone who has a lot of bleeding, you know, menstruation periods and heavy bleeding, they may go in and just kind of ablate it. Ablate it means we're going to burn it off, get rid of it. Now, the bad thing is that once we ablate it, they usually cannot get pregnant after that. So you have to make sure that you have done with your children before we go in and ablate all your lining, okay? The injection of dye and stuff for the breast on 292, we cover that more in general surgery, okay? So sometimes I do say come back and reference this so we can look at it better.